All right, now we're going to do something slightly different. These are entries for notes payable. So we've talked about notes payable several times. We talked about accounts payable being when you purchase things from vendors, they're short-term trade accounts payable. Notes payable, both short-term and long-term, we've talked about. A note payable is when you've actually signed a document promising to pay some specific entity along with some interest. So typically we think about borrowing money from a bank. Some of the examples we've had in previous chapters were we had an account payable, we couldn't pay it, so we switched it out for a note payable. So that's what we're doing here, an installment note. So installment notes are set up with specific payment amounts, right? Like your car loan. Your car loan, you're going to pay a specific amount every month. So in this particular example we're looking at, a company borrowed $50,000 for 6 years, 5% interest, and they're going to pay $98.51 every year, and we're going to document that. All right. So whenever they make a payment, part of it goes to reduce the principal, and part of it's paying the interest expense. So we have to separate those out, right? That's the big thing about accounting, getting everything in the correct account. We're the ones who are keeping track of the categories of stuff. All right. So the first thing in journalizing is we have to get that cash. So issue the installment note for cash on the first day of the fiscal year. Okay, so what's their fiscal year? Let's see here. Borrowed $50,000, Buffett Bank. First payments on the last day of 50 years. First payment consists of $2,500. One on the first day of the fiscal year. Well, we don't really know, so we'll just call it entry 1. All right, so entry 1, day 1 of the fiscal year. You get cash, and we get $50,000. So that's easy. When you first take out the note, you get cash in. So cash, 50, and note payable, Buffett. Right, I like to keep track, keep everything separate because you never know how many notes you're going to take out, and certainly you have to keep track of who you pay how much. So that's your first entry right there. Get your cash, put your liability on the books. All right. Then, paid the first annual payment on the note. All right. So the payments are $98.51. So our payment has to total $98.51. Part of that's interest. Part of that is principal repayment towards the note payable. All right. So the interest it tells us is $2,500. So that sounds about right. 50,000 times 5% times 12 times a year. We don't have to divide it because it is 50,000 times 5%. 5 times 5 is 2,500. All right, so 2,500, 1 year's worth of interest. All right, let's do that. So we're paying them the note in cash. We're paying them the full amount of the installment, and we're just separating out the interest and the principal. All right, so this is transaction number 2 on this note, right? So we're paying the bond payable. The liability is decreasing. I'm sorry, not bond payable. It's a note payable, right? Note payable, Buffett, right? And they're telling us what that is. $73.51. And then we have interest expense, which they told us what that was, $2,500. Of course, we could easily come up with that, right? 50,000 times 5%, $2,500. Of course, we pay those with cash, right? So cash is going out, so that's $98.51. There we go. We did exercise 1210.